Yeah, it's been a good minute, hasn't it, since I was last making a video. 44 to 45 days to be exact on NRE the Wrestleverse. Explaining where I've been is a much more complicated story. Well, it's not, but it's sort of annoying. So, last video I talked about was Roman Reigns versus... was not Roman Reigns. He was involved, but it was Seth Rollins and CM Punk, and then WrestleMania week was coming around, and I was planning to talk about stuff about that, and then they started, and then the biggest bullshit moment happened in this industry that made me cringe was when they all started to talk. And not talk about WrestleMania, they talked about everything but. They talked about AEW, they talked about Vince McMahon, they talked about politics, they talked about AAA being sold to WWE, then they talked about AEW again, and then they kept telling fans who were complaining about the build to WrestleMania and complaining about how the show's being presented and how the interviews were going, and all we got back from them was basically being told to shut up and consume. And it was just like, it ruined my enjoyment to even cover WrestleMania, so I skipped it and more or less kept to myself. Then I started doing stuff on my podcast on Neo Reality Collective. Go check that out on NRE Universe. There will be a link at the end of this video in the video cards. But yeah, that had happened, and then I hadn't had time to watch AEW, and half the time I'd be convinced AEW was actually WrestleMania happening because that was how much they were talking about. Even CM Punk talked about it, saying like, hey, I went with the devil I didn't know instead of the devil I knew. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, Punk, they haven't talked about you in like, what, a year? Since the stupid, and I'll admit it's still stupid to do, video footage they aired, which was, I still say, was still a stupid thing to do, but they kind of moved on with their lives. They haven't name dropped you, they haven't mentioned you, and then you talk about them and saying that they're the devil you didn't know because a couple assholes in the company were being assholes, and even the people you accused were being assholes weren't really the assholes who were spreading misinformation to journalists and all that, because according to Dave Meltzer, the Elite had nothing to do with the Colt Cabana story. So there's that mess that was never resolved. And then, yeah, it's like, yeah, and you'd be almost convinced WrestleMania was actually AEW's premier all or nothing WrestleMania equivalent event going on, with how much they were talking about it. Oh god, like I'm still stunned at that. I'm still talking about it on Blue Sky because it was just so mind-bogglingly stupid. But I finally finished, but then I had to watch some dogs because my grandma went out of town, and then I took the time to try and catch up on some things I've been missing on content creation. And I subsequently dropped with wrestling for a little bit after everything. I haven't watched Backlash, and I heard that show was pretty bad in some areas. Volta, especially fighting Pat McAfee. I don't know what the whole storyline purpose for that, other than building him up for an eventual being beaten by Goldberg. And here's the thing, I wanted to cover the triple threat match at Night 1 Mania, but I was just so disillusioned with how they were acting. I was just not into doing it. Maybe I'll cover it one day, maybe I won't, I don't know. And then I landed an interview with Phil Jimenez on my pop culture podcast site, which was awesome. That was fun. And we did a ton of good things with it. We talked for about 69 minutes and covered a whole bunch of topics. But yeah, so I took some time, and I've been sick this whole week, so that didn't help. I finally managed to sit down and watch AEW again, specifically the main event match, which is the subject of today's video, Samoa Joe versus Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship decided for the first time ever in a steel cage match. My God, this company is about, 6 years old at this point, and they have never done a cage match for the world title. Impressive. I'll give them that. But Jon Moxley, I have been keeping track of AEW, what's been going on from a from the highlights and all that perspective, and there's been a lot of misses with their pay-per-views at the end, specifically with Jon Moxley's title reign, like inserting Christian into the Cope Mox match at Revolution. Then they were like, "We're sorry, we fucked up. Here's the match again on free television, and we'll make it more violent." So, as someone who calls himself the Cult of Cornette complained about that, and then they emailed HBO Max, and HBO Max actually responded back, telling them, then don't watch it if you don't like the violence and whatnot. And the very fact that I have to say Cult of Cornette is something depressing to think about. And then there was the whole, then there was Dynasty, Jon Moxley versus Swerve, then the Young Bucks got involved and people got mad about that. And, I don't know what's been going on. The pay-per-views I've been hearing were knocking it out of the park. It's just always the the world title match that many people didn't like, which sucks. And then we got this build-up to another big event heading into Double or Nothing. And we get a Samoa Joe Jon Moxley match. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. That's a match I haven't seen yet, I think. I'm like, maybe they thought in WWE, but I don't really know. But Samoa Joe and leading the group called the Opps, as they're called, went to war with the Death Riders, as they're now called, not the Blackpool Combat Club. And let's just say it did not go the way Tony Khan had hoped, because Pac the Bastard got injured, and we will now never know why he always wore shirtlessness. Besides my fan theory that this is because of AEW's horny policy. And then Hook got sick and vomited in the middle of a match, and he had to be written off. And this was before the trios title match they had planned, but they brought back Powerhouse Hobbs for this, and it led to the culmination of the end of the Death Riders chokehold on the trios title and the Opps winning the trios title, which was fun. Jon Moxley was temporarily the champion and then got choked out by Samoa Joe. And Samoa Joe was then challenged by Moxley, not the other way around, saying he wants a 1v1 essentially. Let's be real, it's not going to go that way. And this would culminate in a steel cage match at Beach Break. And oh god, Moxley bleeds more. Moxley just loves bleeding for some reason, and I'm pretty sure Brian Nelson at home is watching this and is like, Bree, we need to go to the room now. Oh, god damn it, Brian. And, we all know how that probably went. But, enough about my disturbing fixation on the AEW horny roster's fetishes that are just hilarious to talk about, because it's funny to think about that the AEW roster is apparently on a high drug of libido. Let's go there and whatnot. But Jon Moxley and Samoa Joe went at it, and it was okay. I think the thing that annoyed me was the fact that there were some moments I had to look this up. I watched the match, not the uncut version, because they haven't uploaded that on the HBO Max site yet. And I'm not subscribing to AEW Plus by VPN, but moving on from that. But it felt way shorter than it was shown. It was 15 minutes, and it felt like 5. And the way it ended just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'll get to that. But there was a moment where I was like, wait, why did Jon Moxley go for the rope? This is no DQ, so what's the point of the rope break? Like, if I was in charge of handling the match, if I was the match coordinator, so to speak, I would have been like, wait, why not just have Moxley why not just have Samoa Joe's breaking of his vessel, of his forehead bleeding all over everywhere? So, like, that's what I thought the visual was supposed to lead to. Like, when Jon Moxley was bleeding all around his head and Samoa Joe was trying to trap him, I thought the plan was that Samoa Joe and have Jon Moxley use his blood as a way to slip out of Samoa Joe's grasp. Like, I thought that was where it was all leading to. Like, usually there should be a point to it. It just didn't happen. He went for the rope, and the referee was like, break the rope, break the soul, break the hold, break the hold. And I was like, but this is a no DQ match. That's how cage matches work in AEW. And yeah, and in the middle and during the commercial break, the Opps and the which has the Willow Nightingale, so cool on there, and Death Riders, Maria Shafir, who I'm pretty sure is ready to take on Shayna Baszler at this point, because since she got released from WWE, yes, they did that. If you've been living under a rock, which I understand with how the world is. Shayna Baszler, I wouldn't be surprised if she comes to AEW and the Opps use her as a way to, like, you have one UFC fighter, we have our own. We're bringing Shayna Baszler, or Maria Shafir and Shayna Baszler team up, and they start setting up their women's tag division, because some people have been clamoring for that. Even though I've been calling this the crisis of infinite championships in WWE, I've been calling infinite championships in AEW, because, let's be real, which story was more violent in DC Comics lore? But yeah, and then out of nowhere, Gabe Kidd from New Japan Pro Wrestling shows up, hands Moxley the briefcase to wham it across Samoa Joe's head and get the pinfall, and I was like, that's it? Like, that's all it took? Like, one clock to the head with a briefcase is all it took to defeat the Samoan Submission Machine? Oh, okay. Like, it just bugged me. Like, had that been like I feel like they were under time constraints at that time, but it's like, but AEW always gets, according to them, a lot of leeway with the time limit. Are they trying to like stop doing that a lot? Which, okay, fine, but like, it just bugged me of how easy it felt for Jon Moxley, who got the worst end of that bargain in that match. And the fact that they didn't use that many weapons in the match itself, like, if you're going to do a cage match in AEW and you're allowed to use weapons and no DQ rules, just go all out on it. No pun intended. Okay, pun fully intended, but let's move on. And yeah, following that, the Young Bucks come out, and then pandemonium erupts as Kenny by God Omega arrives to save the day, and then get his ass kicked by Okada. That was funny. Yeah, and now the Elite, the Young Bucks, the Death Riders, Gabe Kidd, like, Okada gets chased off by Speedball Mike Bailey. Yeah, he's in AEW now, if you haven't been paying attention. So that was fun. He chased off Okada, the corporate rainmaker, and then the Young Bucks lowered the cage again after it was raised up, and then swerve when I drive, and I swerve when I drive, and I swerve when I drive, and whatnot. Came out with his Prince, and Swerve, because he already went through one cage match, was like, let's go in there again, and proceeds to climb on top of the cage, and because they don't know how to make this work, they just pile all together and they crash everywhere, because that's the way of that trope that's becoming more and more annoying these days for me. Of like, we need to go ahead and have a big moment where the wrestlers go ahead and crash into each other when someone jumps off of a cage. How do we make it look believable? We don't. You're a genius. And whatnot. But yeah. This continues with them releasing the cage again because the Young Bucks are cowards and everyone flees into their separate cliques. And Swerve declares that the Opps, Kenny Omega, Willow Nightingale, with the Death Riders, Maria Shafir, and the Elite, mostly the Young Bucks. I think Okada's going to fight Speedball Mike Bailey, which I'll be all for. It's going to lead into anarchy in the arena. And I was just like, oh, fuck. Oh, yeah, they've been doing that annually again. And I'm still trying to wonder, now that I think about it, how will they be able to top last year, which ended with Darby Allin being a suicidal, homicidal, death-defying stunt double, rest in peace, Sabu, being hung upside down a few feet off the ground and kicked repeatedly in the head. Then we got the explosions. Then we got the flamethrowers. And I'm like, how are you going to top that? I would have been, people were advocating that after that event, after Double or Nothing last year with that ending, they should have retired the whole thing after that. The people were saying, there's no way they could top that last year, right? There's no way they could top this one, right? And sure enough, now it's let's see, they got the Death Riders, which consists of, Pac's gone, bless his soul for now. We'll never understand. We'll never know why he was still shirtless to the very end. We got the Death Riders consisting of Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, Maria Shafir, the Young Bucks, taking out, and I'm not counting Okada because he looks like he's going to fight Mike Bailey. So it's 6 of them. We got the Opps. Oh, and there's also Gabe Kidd. So 7-on-7 match. That's 14 people. I think that's more than any of the other Anarchy in the Arena matches. So we're ready for pandemonium right now. We're ready for pandemonium. 14-man Anarchy in the Arena fight. Let's fucking go. I'm curious as to know how they'll top the last year. I'm kind of scared to know what they'll do. Oh man, but one of the things that annoys me a little bit about this saga is because it should have went way better than it could have been. And Jon Moxley, let's be real, the whole we need to save Jon Moxley's eventual defeat at the hands of Darby Allin because Darby Allin chose to climb Mount Everest, still in the process of doing that. He's insane. Just makes me go, oh, for fuck's sake. There should have been 15 different ways they could have still had the story centered with Darby, but still have Jon Moxley eventually lose the title to another young face or a young heel, or have Eddie Kingston come back. I'm still curious to know when he'll be back, god damn it. I thought he'd be back by Revolution, but that hasn't happened yet. Damn it. But yeah, it's clearly obvious that that's the end game. It's Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley. Darby Allin becomes world champion. And there was, and had Darby Allin not been thinking of these ambitious ideas to climb Everest, it probably would have ended sooner. But they have to artificially push it, even though look, I get Tony Khan tries to keep his promises to people. I respect that a little bit, but it's if you can't, but there's 100 ways you could probably make this work. Still have Darby be the end game, but still keep the story interesting and with twists and turns, and maybe Jon Moxley could drop the title and go into someone else. It's just, and then Darby will come back and whatnot, the whole gang warfare going on, the No Man's Land stuff I pitched. It's just a missed opportunity right there, and I feel like AEW is a little bit too stubborn with that. But that's just me as a fan from the outside looking in. But don't worry, I'm pretty sure Tony Khan and the others are not going to just tell me to shut up and consume. So there's at least that, Hunter. But yeah, this was your host, Ed Brown of Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, check out our content in the description below. Stay tuned for more. I'll see you again next time. Peace and take care. And oh god, I just needed to talk about something in a long while. Peace out for Wrestle fans. It's just been a crazy few months. Peace, take care, and take care of yourselves and each other.